All right, cool. Happy Monday, everybody. Will Crane here, live from Bunker Labs. It's 4:32, so we're a little running behind, but today we have a great show for you. Today we have, actually you'll see, it looks like the man in the shadows, the founder of Shadow Culture, Paul Riedner. He's live from Minneapolis. We'll be Skyping him in today. Really interesting story. We're going to have a great conversation about transitioning veterans in the context and perspective of corporate America. And how to apply skills from the military into corporate America, but as well also like don't lose your perspective on that as well. So we also have Marquell Smith here. He's the founder of Outspoken Studios, Marine Corps veteran. He'll be here offering some perspective on what he's got going on. All right, yeah. A little bit of that. So it's going to be a great show. So stay tuned today for the breakdown.
Are we going to clap?
It's cool. It's good to keep the energy up on a Monday.
Right? You know, it's hard.
We good? All right, sweet. Technically, we're okay. It looks like sounds good. Thanks, Kai. So Marquell, introduce yourself to Paul.
All right, hi Paul. I'm Marquell. I'm founder of Outspoken Studios. We create really dope tees. Most of them are either funny or political or somewhere in between, all the above. We also do custom screen printing, both locally here in Chicago. We also do screen printing around the country. We do ship our orders. We founded last year. We've had orders in D.C., Texas. Quite a bit of people reach out to me for being a veteran-owned business. So I've had great success being a veteran-owned screen printer. So if you need T-shirts, let me know. I'll give you a veteran discount.
There you go. Good deal. What was that?
I said, sounds good. I love the concept. I've actually found that a lot of times, if I can make my message as bold as possible, it helps to the clutter, right? And get good response. You know, you might get some people pissed off, some people all for it, but that's good marketing, right? If you can get people engaged with it. So that sounds cool.
All press is good press. That's what I hear.
Well, I mean, just so we can actually keep bringing this up now. We were just talking about Kanye right before we went live here, and how maybe sometimes speaking up is
bad for business.
I don't know. Just got to be, I guess, react to that.
Yeah, like how do you overcome it, right? I think that in business, like anything, business or whether you're a veteran, you have to retell your story and figure out how to overcome it. And I think he finds himself in a place where he's actually having to now retell his story from what he used to be. And if you think about veterans' careers, they actually have to figure out how to tell a story that they used to tell in a new way. So they have to package it up so somebody will like it. So
yeah, it's working on that narrative.
Yeah.
So Paul, explain what you're doing out in Minneapolis.
Yeah, so I've been working in the veteran community first as a nonprofit and helping veterans get mental health therapy. We had a free service for up to 12 sessions of EMDR and got good results. But now I'm taking what I learned in that project and applying it to the workplace. And in a sense that I offer a training program so that a company that hires veterans can have an understanding of how veteran culture is different than corporate culture. And so I do that. It's a diversity and inclusion training program. And also events. I interview veterans in roundtable discussions. I have a new podcast pilot episode that we're shopping around to media outlets to get to build a partnership and a sponsor for that series of uncensored veteran conversations. And then the other part is that, I'm really just solving what is the biggest problem here for a lot of organizations is that veteran civilian divide, where there's a lot of misconceptions about veterans and what they offer to our community and what we're good at that is really hard for someone who's not connected to it to understand. So that's what I'm working on. It's called Shadow Culture, and the website is shadowcultureinnovation.com.
That's awesome. So what are some of the things you're having conversations about with companies, at whatever size? What are you leading with?
Well, one of the quickest ways to get into the conversation is to compare and contrast cultures. so that we can see that they're different. So I have these things, and this is one of those resources for everyone who wants to check it out. There's a guy his name is Alan Hill. He wrote a paper on veteran cultural competence. And so, some of this material is from him, but I'll just go through and say, okay, in corporate culture, my responsibility is the success of me, whereas in warrior culture, my responsibility is the success of my teammates. And then I'll go down the line to talk about some of those differences. Here's another one, warrior culture. We resolve conflicts directly so that people don't get hurt, whereas in corporate culture, resolves conflicts diplomatically so feelings don't get hurt. And so I just try to make the spectrum on a number of dimensions so that they can understand that, okay, this is a different way of communicating, a different way of solving problems, and then a different understanding of the needs of the group or, the mission. And so oftentimes I'll bring people through an exercise where I use a lot of music in my training. So I'll play some music and I'll be like, all right, let's find the beat together, and we'll start snapping. And we'll do that for like a minute. And then I'll look around and be like, yeah, we should probably do that before we start.
Yeah.
But then I'll look around and say like, okay, why did I do that? And I'll show them a research from 2008 that it took business school students and prepared them to play an economic game where you could either make the most money that you could possible.
Make the most money? Is that what you said?
Make the most money.
Okay.
Yep. Or if you forego that opportunity, you can make sure that your team made as much money as they could as a unit. Those are the only real two options. But before they sat down to play the game, one set of teams were told, okay, you want to walk together for a certain amount of time and then come back and then go sit down and play. And then the second set were told to go on a walk together, but they had to go in step like we do in the military, marching, and then sit down and play the game. Well, they were marching for the play, 50% more cooperative. So the numbers put out across many, many times doing this kind of experiment. And so that's a really simple way, I think, to understand the effect of all the training that we get when we're in the military, not just in basic training, but when we deploy and we do everything together, and we put them and we call cadence together. Like imagine what that does over a 20-year career, when you can see the actual results just by doing it for 5 minutes, just with some business school students. Right. And so it's like it taps into like who we are as human social like creatures, that it taps into that biology where when we see us working together and in step and in time with each other, we start to work together better. And the effect of that over time is that now you have a veteran sitting down, maybe got hired up in your team, and they're still saying we instead of I.
Yeah.
They're still looking at the needs of the group, not their own needs, right? And so as much as we want to like empower veterans to come in an organization and utilize that capacity, it's so strong. We also have to be like, okay, give all of yourself, but take care of yourself as well. Look, do what you need to do. Because everyone else is going to be, out for themselves. That's the reality of it, right? Like in the corporate world, it's take care of number one first. And so you got to be able to do those things, but definitely leverage that to create strong teams and to be able to have the courage to call out things when you can see something that other people can't see. And so that's how I get into this sort of conversation, by giving very real examples that we can all understand.
Wow, it's a lot.
That is.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, I got quite a few friends that kind of experience this, where they go into these jobs in the civilian workforce and it comes time for promotions or raises. I find that a lot of veterans have trouble navigating this particular issue because there's a promotion system outlined pretty much that's pretty clear for veterans. But in the civilian world, it's not. It doesn't work that way. It's based off profits, based off politics, and a lot of the things that you name. I'd be curious, if any of your work you ever touch base on that and how to overcome it, because I know at least 2 of my friends right now that are having this exact issue. They're veterans. They're not really sure. They don't want to push buttons, but they still want to get what they deserve. And I think that often happens with a lot of veterans.
Yeah, it's a good point. It comes up quite a bit. I would say to alleviate that on the front end is really being clear with your leadership about how much feedback you want and how you would like that feedback. Because we're used to in the military getting very regular feedback on how we're doing. And so that can be kind of mystifying coming into an organization that doesn't have that kind of structured leadership. So I think being on the front end of that is helpful. And the other part is just making sure that we understand that the social relationships that it feels weird to us. Like we can't just do a good job and get the promotion or the pay raise that we need, that there's this other part of it is dealing with the people around us and leading up the chain as well, so that we're really communicating properly with people above and below us, and just have to deal with the politics of it all. And it's going to be a challenge. This isn't like I've mastered any. Doing my best to figure out where this spectrum lies, from what we know to be true and how we do things in the military, and then how it happens in the civilian side. And so hopefully we can influence some of that, so that how we work can be embraced in the corporation or in the small business. So I think it probably just comes down to communication and getting that feedback when we need it, so we know where we're at, and there's no big surprises all of a sudden at the end when we thought we were just killing it, and turns out no, someone else is in line for that promotion that we're banking on.
Right.
Yep.
That's interesting. How is it? So I want to talk about your business model for a minute. Like, how is it received when you go to new organizations, and basically, so like the points you're making, and I think that there's I'm getting lost in my thoughts here. You go into an organization and you offer basically like simple points. Communicate, like ask for feedback, like things that might be almost like obvious, but you're coming in as an outsider and saying that. How is that received? And do they are they taking into account your military perspective when they're doing that? Is that like the driver for them? And I have a follow up after, but. Like how is it received?
Sure. So here's the thing. Most people, when we have this like initial conversation, are thinking that I'm coaching veterans, or I'm consulting with the veterans in the organization, and that is definitely not what I'm doing. Although I end up working with a lot of vets. What it's more like that I'm offering the civilian leadership and workplace what they need to understand that veterans have a different talent profile. Mm-hmm. And to be able to access that different talent profile, we have to get our myths out of the way. Okay? There's pervasive myths that we have to talk about. And then give them an accurate framework for understanding what is the difference between whether it's me before and after the military, or just in general, veterans and civilians, because those world experiences are just so different. And we know 0.5% of people serve in the military these days, so that means we really have to be careful because of these myths and how they are created through the media and through movies. If we don't give accurate information, those are just going to create a bunch of misconceptions, and that's really dangerous.
Yeah, true. Cool. And then I want to ask you about so back to the business model stuff. Like when you go to I guess how do I ask this? A very common misconception, and I'd say that this is probably true for a lot of people. Like when you think about going in to solve a problem, and you say, McDonald's has this problem with them, but I could never go into McDonald's and make that change myself because they're McDonald's. They have billions of dollars to go throw at this stuff. We actually tend to see that you can go into organizations and make changes when you have the right introductions, because you can go in and for $50,000 or for $25,000 or 100, whatever your rate is, you can go in and say, I literally only do this one thing, and I'm going to come in here and do this because I'm a professional in doing this. And instead of you guys hiring internally people to come and do these things who are, they want salaries, they want benefits, then you have to hire people in HR to come and deal with these specific personnel and managers. And at the end of the day, you end up spending, I don't know, $6 million to find out who's going to paint your parking lots next year at Target. It's like you can hire an external company to come in and do the same thing for you for like $75,000. And they'll take care of it all, and they'll do everything. So I think that, like, for your model, like, to come in and basically be a support system for HR or for employee engagement specialists within an organization to come in and say, for a fraction of the cost I can come in, I think that's really interesting, and it's amazing to talk to somebody who's doing that. We know a couple companies here in Chicago that do, and nationwide actually, that do very similar things, but it needs to be, like echoed and amplified, that, like, it's really, I wouldn't say easy to go in and make a change, but if you can make a logical argument and say, I can make a significant change that's going to reduce your costs per year by millions of dollars, like, you'd be an idiot not to do it. So
yeah, exactly. When you look at the cost of turnover, right? So locally here in Minneapolis, we have Target, and so they said they were going to hire 10,000 vets, which is great. But if those vets are going to have a high turnover rate because they enter teams where they don't really feel like they're not understood and they're not being engaged, well, that turnover cost is going to kill that kind of investment. And so to say, look, we just have to change 0.5% of your unnecessary turnover, and that's gonna be $5 million savings for a company like that.
Yeah,
that's easy. That's easy all day, every day. Pay someone $50,000 and help people just look at the problem differently.
Right.
And the other part of that, to your point, Will, is like a third party or an outsider has a different ability to bring identify problems and speak honestly than someone on the inside who is going to take a potentially a big risk to talk about something like this.
Right.
Because that's not their job, right? They have a bunch of responsibilities, and they're not going to just out of the blue be like, you know what, I think I want to talk about the common misperception that veterans have PTSD and are violent. Like that's really tough. But someone from the outside can go and take care of those like hot button issues,
right?
And support internal people more, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'm curious. So I actually did a little bit of consulting for about 2 years around veteran employment for a major foundation here in Chicago, trying to create employment opportunities. One of the things that I found in the research was there was a lot of entry-level hiring, like you talked about Target. Those jobs are just generally entry-level. I'm curious if when you engage, because part of what I was trying to do was create a career path for veterans, when you engage these companies, if that's part of the conversation, that they go beyond these sort of entry-level jobs like a lot of companies do, and they create a career path for veterans that's sustainable. Because, what the research shows is that a veteran without a college degree gets paid, more than a civilian who doesn't have a college degree. But when you get a veteran with a college degree versus a civilian with a college degree, they're getting paid on par. And so some of this stuff is not necessarily happening at different levels. And so I'd be curious to see if you've had any conversations with any companies that have shown an interest in sort of expanding that type of work.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I don't have direct experience with this problem or this type of solution on the inside of a company, but it's an important point that comes up in terms of when you have someone who works in such a dynamic environment, like almost anyone in the military, that you have to work with people from all these different job functions to be able to do your job, right? And you're always on the move and going around the world and involved with dangerous and very complex environments. And then to say, hey, we're going to sit you down in this one part of our company, and this is what you're going to do all day, every day, right? To me, that's a tough sell. When in fact, if you had a feeder program where, okay, now, you know what we're going to do? We're going to teach you about all these different parts of our organization so that you can see how the whole thing works, right? And then you can start to apply what it is that you're trained to do. and understand how everything works together. I think that is where an organization can really get the most out of hiring a veteran. And there are some organizations that do that, but usually they do it with someone who has an MBA and then goes to like Medtronic and be like, because now it's like different level of understanding the business. But I continually find it's true that you could take a guy working the door at Best Buy, right? And if you actually spend some time seeing and talking to him and being like, what are you seeing here that's not working well, right? You don't have to have an MBA to be able to see that something's screwed up.
Right.
And these are people who deal with your customer every single day. And we know that people in the military and people that have been in the military have a different way of seeing a problem, something in the, like a choke point, something, and that's true for every community, right? Every community has something that they are just better at identifying or articulating, whatever it is. And so being able to engage that person with a larger perspective of, I know your job is security, but what are you seeing here? I think there's so much to be learned from doing that kind of, I think it's like business anthropology. It's just going and talking to the people in the community or in the company and be like, what is it that you guys see? What do you not get in that you need? Or what's an opportunity that
talking to people just sucks. I think is what it is. Like it's like amazing. It's like Occam's razor. The simplest solution is usually like the best solution. I mean, it's crazy. Like it's like hard to get people to do. What's that? There's this Louis C. And I know we're running short on time, but there's this Louis C.K. joke where he's like, sorry, that's a hot topic, but he's like, people won't even, those people that like drive their car and they like need to turn left, and they're like, sorry, like I need to turn left. Like I could just go up one more block and go left, so they cut off all of traffic. Because like I need to turn left. That's people. They just it's hard to get them to just like find out the answer to stuff they maybe don't want to hear. Yeah, that's true. but it helps.
Well, the other part is that we always think that someone else has the answer. So we're going to go hire all these people to tell us what you could have just walked down on the floor of the store and figured out by trusting the person that you put there to understand the problem.
Then that person might want a little more compensation.
What you got there?
Extreme ownership.
Nice.
This is my hack. Kai, is it on me? This is going to be my hack this week. Actually, it's not, but while we're talking about it, this is a great book. You should read it. It'll click probably for everybody. I'd say 900% of people would click with. Jocko Willink's the author, Extreme Ownership. I'd suggest picking it up. So we're going to do this thing around the table of hacks. My hack is going to be, this is kind of beating a dead horse, but Launch Lab Online. We have just under 300 military veteran entrepreneurs, aspiring military veteran entrepreneurs signed up right now for Launch Lab Online. It's our online education platform. Who am I talking to, Kai? This camera? Cool. All right. Starts in June. It's hundreds of hours of educational content focused around entrepreneurship, specifically structured for military veterans. So sign up on our website. So that was my shameless plug for Launch Lab Online. Marquell, you got a hack?
I got 2 hacks, actually.
2 hacks.
The first hack is, since you did a shameless plug, I'm going to do a shameless plug. If you need screen printing, visit outspokenstudios.com. That's first. But the second is, one of the things that I do to manage customer relationships is that most people don't know, thanks to folks here at the Bunker Labs, they told me about HubSpot. HubSpot offers a 90% discount in the first year to military veterans. It took me a process to get this actual thing, a couple of days, but eventually I got it. I think it cost maybe $100, $150 for this. I ended up paying half the cost. Whatever it was, they have a lot of like canned templates you could send to people. So in the process of me communicating with a customer who I hadn't heard from in a while, they had this template. I just happened to say, let me see if this actually worked. I sent this customer this template. It had an opportunity for the customer to schedule a time to sit with you. The customer actually did it. And I only did it with one customer, so it was my first customer, so it felt really good. Gave momentum to keep trying it. And so I'd say any veteran who has to manage customer relationships or just manage any relationships at a fraction of the cost, you can use HubSpot at 90% off. So
it's amazing.
Try it out.
Sweet. Paul, do you have a hack or do you have anything you want to pitch, plug?
Well, the hack would be on the book front. The one I found more valuable than almost anything was Sebastian Junger's book, Tribe. It's a really short book. He was a war reporter. You guys probably talked about him on this platform before, but I love how he ties together the return from service with looking at how Native cultures do it successfully, because we definitely don't do it successfully, but we know what we could be doing, and there's a lot of good insights in that book, I think.
Awesome. So Try by Sebastian Younger. Awesome. Great hack. All right, Paul, thank you so much for joining us. If anybody wants to, is it shadowculture.org or shadowculture.com?
Shadowcultureinnovation.com.
Awesome. So if you want to get in touch with Paul, if you are watching this and you are in corporate America and you want Paul to come in and run a program for you, I suggest going to shadowcultureinnovation.com. Thank you so much, Marquell. Any final words?
No. Deuces.
All right, we'll see you next week.
See you
Take
next
care.
week.
Thanks, guys.
And we're out, Kai. Thanks, Paul.
Thanks. That's where we're at.